Let's now get the latest from the world of sport. Isaac, you have been following that case involving Senegal. It has now gone to court.
Yes, indeed. It has gone to the Court of Arbitration for Sport. They say that they are going to rule on Senegal's appeal as swiftly as possible after they were stripped of the Africa Cup of Nations title. Senegal, of course, beat Morocco 1-0 in the final in January. The scoreline, though, was changed to a 3-0 victory to Morocco 2 months later. Senegal's players walking off the field in protest when Morocco were awarded a stoppage time penalty before eventually returning. This ruling has had a lot of people talking in the world of football, but whichever way it goes, it's sure to have a lasting implication on the sport on the continent. And I'm now joined by Brian Wesaala from a Kenyan sports researcher and founder of Football Foundation for Africa, which is a Pan-African initiative that uses football to drive societal and economic development. Brian, just first off, what are your thoughts on this matter having to go to the Court of Arbitration for Sport in the first place?
Thank you. What strikes me most is not that it has reached CAS. It's what the journey to CAS reveals. CAS's own internal processes produce two contradictory decisions from the same fact. We know that the disciplinary board did not apply the regulation, in this case, Articles 82 and 84, and the appeal board came along and overturned what they did. So looking at these, in my view, if your own institutions cannot agree and you are forced to go outside of the continent to resolve an issue, in this case to CAS, it means that CAS's internal architecture has failed African football in this case. So it's a governance failure that we are looking at here, and not just these appeals by Senegal that now find itself in the Court of Arbitration of Sport in Lausanne.
Do you think that this undermines the viability of CAF, whatever happens at the Court of Arbitration for Sport?
I think at this point it's really how CAF responds going forward. Will they be, more intentional about reforming their governance structures, making sure that their institutions from now on, deliver the kind of decisions that African football deserves. So, we need clarity around what happens when this kind of incidents occur, and this should be communicated, well in advance. And it should not take, for example, 2 months for us to find ourselves in this kind of situation. Prior to the tournament, it should be very clear, should any of these kind of occurrences, happen, this is the process that's going to be followed, and we're going to have a decision in this amount of time, and we are able to, move forward in a more stable manner. So it's not really a death knell for CAF in this case. It just depends on how well they now move from these controversy going forward in handling governance issues in African football.
Do you think, obviously, the next tournament is going to be happening in your country, Kenya, Uganda and Tanzania, of course, co-hosting this competition. Do you think that this whole saga kind of undermines African football with this tournament going forward? People might not have the same level of confidence in the Africa Cup of Nations if a match can be overturned 2 months later.
This is a risk we definitely have to deal with. We definitely have to, consider. And the timing could not have been more uncomfortable. Kenya is just 4 days away from a CAF deadline to pay a 30 million hosting fee that was never included in its national budget. Uganda and Tanzania, our neighbors, have paid their dues. And this week, the Ministry of Sports here in Kenya and the Football Federation announced that Kenya will be hosting, the women's friendly matches, the women's FIFA series, at one of the venues that is actually behind schedule when it comes to innovation, and that's the Nyayo National Stadium. So it really begs the question whether we have a strategic framework around what it means to host a tournament of AFCON magnitude, and in this case, AFCON 2027. Because if we do not develop these kind of frameworks and make sure that they are consistent, across board, across the continent, then the kind of risk or the controversies that we have now witnessed with AFCON 2025 are bound to repeat themselves. And that's why we are saying what we are witnessing here is not strategic, rather it's a pattern that, if left unchecked, will really undermine the viability and value of African football, because, as we know, AFCON is really the epitome of what we understand to be African football. It drives the commercialization of football on the continent, and therefore it should be held in the highest regard, and that means the processes and structures around it have to be very stable and not susceptible to this kind of events and triggers.
Brian, really interesting getting your thoughts there. That's Brian Wesaala from the Football Foundation for Africa.
Isaac Fanin, thank you very much indeed. We've had a message in on this from Alicine M. So in Mayamba Town, Sierra Leone, who says, I think Senegal deserves fair justice from the Court of Arbitration for Sport, and if Senegal wins, they should be compensated.